Hey, I'm Truth. Before I start, I have an announcement. So, this week I got really distracted by art fight. Next week will actually be an art fight prep video. Some of the characters I'm making in the series will go there. But if you want to join me, my profile will be in the description, and just like that's something I'll be doing, and I would love to do it with some people. It's fun. I know there's like drama going on with art fight, there always is. I don't really pay attention to it. I only joined last year, and I end up like the people there seem really nice and seem like a good community. So I would love to continue on with art fight and just like have fun. So yeah, I'll be talking about that this week. For this video, the basics of this challenge that you need to know is I take 3 songs and make it to a character based on what the songs remind me of. The instructions to that will be in my Tumblr account in the description, but let's just start right now. Alright guys, it's time for the catch up. I did this character May 29th last week and I failed at the editing phase and had to redo. So for the first song I got On the Floor by Ice J Fish. I think there's 2 J's, I only wrote 1. So I'm gonna play like half a second of it to give you the vibes. I don't really know what to do with this, but yeah.
Something about the girl that just makes my head.
So if this song wasn't a joke, I don't know what's going on anymore, but it has like 92 million views and like the comments don't know if it's a joke either. I looked at it a little bit closer, right? Because I was like, this guy now posts a bunch of Christian music and it's around the same singing quality. So I'm thinking this wasn't a joke. And, well, in complete honesty, I have heard much worse songs made completely sincerely, so...
My hair is growing. It is as bright and shiny as the sun. I wonder what kind of hair my mother has. But my heart is healthy. Why did you kill me, Mommy?
The song by Ice J Fish is not all that bad, all things considered, because the other one is kind of concerning in other ways, but anyway, I'm going to read some lyrics now. It's something about you, girl, that makes my head wanna twirl. Oh, you got me wanting to tell all them other girls there's nothing else better on this world. The moment I seen her, I was in shock. Shocked. So shocked you would have think that I had just been shot. Shot right down in the spot, but too bad this doesn't happen a lot. And then I do not feel comfortable reading the next few lines. So, I'm just gonna end it there and move on. Usually I have like a background, what am I gonna take from this song specifically for this character? I didn't know what to take here, so I just moved on to the next song, and what I got was Hot to Go by Chapel Roan. I don't really think I have to read out the lyrics of this. I think it's very well known. So I guess character-wise from that, I was like, I'm gonna make them very colorful, maybe a little bit eccentric and loving, from Hot to Go. But I didn't know what to do. With that kind of crazy, I have no idea what to do vibes, I was like, you know what, I feel like a clown. Because I felt like I was in a circus from listening to those songs back to back. Not saying the Hot to Go is bad, it's amazing, it's just like, And then like everything completely changed with the third song. I ended up going down a rabbit hole. Let's get into that, right? So the third song is called Seconds and Years from the musical Next to Normal. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of background on this. This is one of my favorite musicals of all time. It's about this older bipolar woman and her family as they try to navigate the highs and lows of her therapy and psychiatric treatment. The song follows her soon after going through electroconvulsive therapy, waking up completely out of the manic and depressive state, but she has a many years long loss of her memory. She can't remember like her daughter. She can remember meeting her husband, but nothing else. Okay, I'm gonna go into the lyrics quickly, but I will say that this musical is, I think, a good representation of bipolar, but it's not perfect. A lot of what this woman goes through is not typical for people with that disorder. A lot of what she goes through, like, in this musical, she has hallucinations and stuff like that. It could be a comorbidity, which means she could have a different disorder at the same time rather than a symptom of bipolar itself, although it could be a complication. It's not 100% universal what this musical explains. Another thing to say, I know electroconvulsive therapy sounds terrifying, but as it's used today, it's found to be significantly effective in treating some depressive symptoms, even with people just with normal depression, not just bipolar. It is not in this story used as it was in the past history, where it was a terrible thing. But it is still scary, I understand. And I do think that a loss of memory is possible with it. I don't think it's the normal reaction, but this example from this musical is a possibility, I guess. The musical here, though, is showing a very extreme case because, it creates an interesting story. Okay, let's go into the lyrics. A little loss of memory is normal and helpful in forgetting all her fears. And then here comes the husband who goes, I couldn't give a flying fuck what's normal. We haven't had a normal day in years. Are things becoming clearer with the treatment? Is life less cloudy than it was before? Do you still feel your head is filled with concrete? And then she goes, no. And you're not a scary rock star anymore because, I don't know, he was a weird rock star in her romantic state. Okay, I'm gonna now take that back to the character. But first, I'm gonna say for this research, I'm gonna go into a few types of amnesia. So for some background, I am not a professional psychologist. However, I do have a degree in psychology and I'm working on continuing that study. So I am talking about these things with some background in the study of them, but I'm not an authority on anything. Because of the last song, I also think it's a very interesting way of bringing that study into what I'm doing here. So bear with me as I go into that a little bit. Okay, firstly, let's go over the types of amnesia real quickly so I can introduce what I'm talking about. Okay, there is a couple different types of amnesia that we'll go into first. One is retrograde amnesia. This is where you forget memories before the amnesia starting incident. This is what you typically picture when you think of amnesia, I guess, from the common perception of it. Second is anterograde amnesia. This is where you cannot make new memories after the amnesia starting incident. The third type of amnesia is transient global amnesia. You forget everything before the incident and you cannot make new memories. So it's both retrograde and anterograde amnesia together. Usually this doesn't last too long, but there are cases that it can. One example is this one man who has a 7-second memory. He doesn't remember anything, and also he can only make new memories up to 7 seconds. I will put the documentary that I found here in the description. The fourth type of amnesia, post-traumatic amnesia. This is head injury causing confusion and disorientation and amnesia around the incident. It tends to be temporary. And now for the final type, which I'm actually going to touch on. It's controversial, which I'll talk about later, but it is dissociative amnesia. So I'm going to quote the website real quick. So, quote, the mind's response to trauma can show up as dissociative amnesia, a condition that affects memory. It makes it hard to remember important life events, often those that are traumatic or stressful. Dissociative amnesia is closely tied to psychological trauma. When someone goes through a traumatic event, their mind might use dissociation to cope. This can cause a disconnection from memories, making it tough to recall specific details or events, end quote. Basically, kind of like the idea of repression of memories. General dissociative amnesia is rare enough on its own and debated about. But I think it could be interesting to touch on in this story something that's even more incredibly rare. I went back to my abnormal psychology notes from a couple years ago, and if this statistic that our professor told us still holds true, which I figured out later in research that it is, the thing that I'm talking about called dissociative amnesia with dissociative fugue has a prevalence of 0.2% in the general population. To put it simply, this almost never happens. For a basic definition, I went to this open book source from Baylor University called Understanding Psychological Disorders, which I can't quote directly here, but I can put it in the description. I'm going to now do just like a general explanation of what this is. So dissociative fugue is something that can happen to individuals with dissociative amnesia. Basically, a person will suddenly forget about who they are and what they're doing and suddenly leave their life and simply wander. The onset of this is sudden and without warning. Although it seems to be related to instances of stress or trauma in some way, in their wandering many things could happen. They could build a whole new life, create new relationships, or just get lost. the whole experience is incredibly strange, and with how rare it is, I don't think potential reasons for this experience have been landed on by researchers or agreed upon. Most fugues last from a couple of hours to a day, but there have been instances where they last months or even years. The individual might wander as far as several thousand miles in this state. They do not lose their ability to interact with the world or others, but they have zero recollection of their life before. The end of the fugue, like its onset, is sudden. Once they return to themselves, they remember nothing that happened during the fugue. As a side note, even just general dissociative amnesia, like I said, is very rare and also debated on. The idea of repressed memory can be a dangerous one, but because there's a possibility that a false memory can be implanted into a person, which causes unnecessarily extra trauma in the therapeutic space, which is the exact opposite purpose of therapy. If you want to learn more about this, look into what happened during what's called the Satanic Panic of the 1980s. I'm not going to go into this fully now, but I've been through multiple lectures on this, and the debate of this subject goes back a very long way. Dissociative fugue, likewise, is debated on. Clinicians are not all in agreement if it's a real experience or if it can be explained away by other behavioral or scientific reasons. But for this story, I want to think about the possibility of someone in a fugue state from a storyline perspective, not tackling this particular case's realness, but thinking about the experience of this one particular character. For this character, I want to create a fun-loving person who arrives somewhere and who has completely lost concept of who she is and what she's doing. And wherever she arrives, she creates relationships, finds a job, finds loves, taking hints from Hasegawa's song, and generally just lives her life for a couple of months. I want to explore what would happen to her relationships once the memory of what her life really is returns to her, and she forgets everything that has happened in the last couple of months. Now for the actual design choices. The original idea I mentioned with the first two songs was a circus, which is very out of the realm of reality for any of the stories that I found. However, if you have a story about characters in a circus, you can have groups of people traveling in a normal place from town to town in weird places in their lives. If we look at a historical circus, as messed up as they might be, traveling on a circus train is a very good place to have a completely lost sense of who you are and not being found out for who you are. Because of that, I decided to stick with that idea of a circus and started the design stage with research on historical circus outfits. Just like the French Revolution studies I did in my last video, I found an archive with historical sketches of circus costume designs. Most of my studies came from there, as well as from a Florida State University's digital repository of circus photographs. And I'm going to say that the repository has photo books with names in it that are like Freak 1, Freak 2, and it was kind of upsetting. They are historical and definitely have the historical view of these people. Knowing the history of circuses in retrospect is interesting but also still awful to look through. I looked through part of one of the books that was labeled quote-unquote freak, and it just had people who were of color expressing their culture, and it was really weird and really racist. And I know I'm using historical circuses as a less historical setting, but the more I learn about them, the more upset I was getting, especially when some of the things I was looking into were straight up racist. So I just kind of started going more for the idea of like a traveling carnival going from town to town, which is basically the same thing but slightly different. Like maybe this character was a magician's assistant who was traveling, something like that. But I still kept with the first circus sketches. Also, I will say that looking through the sketches and photographs, I had a little glass of wine and I felt very old. Okay. On another note, trying to figure out how to incorporate something like a fugue state into the character design was much harder. In the end, I used some of the clown circus outfit sketches I looked at and realized that when making the concept of a character, quite a few of the sketches were very on the nose. For example, there was a moon clown with a literal moon head, and a sun clown with a literal sun head, and then a peacock clown with a peacock head and a peacock tail. It was just literally exactly what they were trying to say. Because of that, I decided to make the concept very literal. To use the idea of somehow a fractured mind, I split the idea in the middle and cut up the colors with loosely placed ribbons that can kind of like slice little pieces of the design in half. The main clear concept is on her forehead. I referenced the composition in Red, Yellow, and Blue by Piet Mondrian. This is one of the most well-known pieces of abstract art. Because it's so well-known, I thought I could use the outfit as the idea of like I would say abstracting mind, but that just sounds like the digital circus, and she's not becoming a big scary monster with eyes. Like a fracturing mind. The idea is pretty on the nose, like I said, but I think it works because that's what I'm going for. For the story, I decided this character is a young hostess at a hotel. She's lived there her whole life, being the surrogate mother for her siblings, and she started working when she was really young. She paved a way for her family through life by working into her early 20s. After walking home from work one day, she seemingly disappears. Around the same time, this carnival or traveling magician comes to town. She leaves everything behind, and her family is left looking for her. At the same time, a young woman with no recollection or who she is or where she comes from becomes an assistant to the magician at this traveling carnival. She's gregarious and joyful, creating relationships for her co-workers and carnival goers, and just having a ton of fun, finding love, doing all that sort of thing. A few months later, she wakes up remembering who she is, but she has no idea how she got to this carnival and remembers none of the people around her. I feel like there's a few questions the story could ask. One would be like, is she going to stay at the carnival? Is she going to re-find these relationships and choose to continue to escape her life? And also, there's the question on how real are the relationships she made, even when she doesn't remember them? Another question this story could ask is the validity of a fugue state. From the perspectives that are not her own, since this is such a rare disorder, it's really expected that most people around her might not believe what she's saying, or like her family might feel betrayed because they think that she just left her on her own decision. This is this character. I have not named her yet. She's so far unnamed. Let's see what I'm gonna do with her. I actually really like how she came out. Especially the bigger profile picture of her, the face. It's more simple. I really wish I could learn more about how to make facial profiles look more distinct, more, what's the word? Detailed. Yeah, that's the word. But that's something I'm just gonna have to work on. Alright, let's continue on. Alright, so now for the second character of this video, and character 6 of this summer challenge. I'm going to start in my sketchbook, so let's jump there real quick. So I'm on my floor right now, but here's my sketchbook. This is the best I can do for a setup right now. Oh, my hair is on my mic. Okay, this is the best I can do for a setup right now, because my desk is about 3 hours away in a different location. So I'm here. I have a bunch of pens. I have these erasable pens that I just bought to see how they work. They're kind of weird. How about this guy? I love this guy. He's Pilot G2, you know, office supplies. And then I have a bunch of Tombos. These are fun. These are cute, but I'm here. My hands are shaking like nobody's business. I already listened to the 3 songs for this character, and I just want to sketch out some ideas. I need to put these down. I need to sketch out some ideas. Don't know what I'm gonna do. Hopefully I'll come up with something. Yeah. Alright, let's start. Well, I keep hitting the camera. Whatever. Okay, so yeah, that's me doing some ideas. I hope you enjoy. I'm gonna say that this is around when I started getting distracted by art fight stuff, so yeah, it's not as detailed as it should be. I'll tell you what I would change at the end of this. So let's go on to the songs that I got. The first song I got is My Best Friend by Coach Party and Alfie Templeman. So let's go over some of the lyrics. The lyrics are, I like being sad. It's the bestest friend I've ever had. Oh, it's the only one that's always there, and it's the only one that seems to care. I don't know, I guess that is his friend. Anyway, the chorus. My best friend is a killer in disguise. She'll show you things you've never seen. You won't believe your eyes. My best friend has a lot to say about you. She's a killer and she don't care. They say that she can take you anywhere. She's your partner in your crimes. It's so good to know that she is mine. So, pretty obvious. What you can take from this is the character is in some sort of relationship with someone who is dangerous. I went literal with this in saying that it's a killer or someone who is doing some pretty bad things. I think that could make for an interesting story. The last few weeks I've been on a little bit of a true crime kick. I keep on hearing about the killer's significant others, often continuing to support them even after the truth comes out, or being in denial until the day they die. It's not universal for every case, but it's so often that I've started to think about why someone would do that, why someone would stand by someone who is clearly bad, or deny the clear evidence presented to them. So I was gonna think about that during this character. Okay, let's go to the second song. The second song is Homesick by Housephone. So the lyrics are this. I don't miss you, but sometimes I remember laying in your bed and watching you play your DS. And we didn't have to speak, and I think I wish I could go back to the way I felt those weeks, but I don't miss you. Because that's the thing about rotten love. Sometimes it's fine, and it doesn't have to hurt 100% of the time, and I can still mourn what I've lost without denying the abuse. And I can still take time to move on without acting like I never missed your bedroom. But it's the hardest to let go of all the things I loved about you most. You can miss a place and still know that I'll never go back to your family home. Okay. So I think this song, it's once again goes into an unhealthy relationship. I'll talk about that for a little bit, but I'm gonna do a quick trigger warning here because this started to really set in stone the tone of the story, and what's going on is about an unhealthy relationship, maybe unhealthy character. So, you know, if that is not something you're comfortable listening to, please just don't listen to it. There's no shame. Anyway, so what we have here is someone who is accepting the fact that they have left someone that they love despite the fact that they were terrible to them. I think it's a very beautiful song and a very vulnerable, emotional state that this person who wrote it was in. I didn't take everything specifically from this song. For the character I have, because of the next song, as I'll show you, it kind of like maybe this person bounces back and forth from loving and from denying this person that they're with. But even in an unhealthy relationship, there are those little moments of goodness that makes you want to stay with them, which is really sad. As people, we want to love others. We want to have reason to love others. And it hurts to know that someone you love could hurt you or hurt someone else. So I'm gonna go to the third song now. This is Pixie by Ren. The lyrics are, she'll be picking, pocketing, stealing hearts on the high street. All right. My little pixie, I can get quite drunk on the love. It makes me tipsy all night, my little pixie. There's a difference between lust and love, and I just think I got it. And everywhere that I go, I take my pixie with me in my pocket. I said the way that you're moving is magical. Please don't stop it. Now everywhere that I go, I take my pixie with me in my pocket. Okay, so what we have here is 3 songs. The first song, where someone's happily in love with someone unhealthy. A next song where they have left that person, and a third song where you're in love again. So I think this is kind of like a relationship that's on and off again because this is a terrible person, and because maybe our character is battling with the fact that they don't want to accept the evidence in front of them of the nature of the person that they're in love with. So this is very specific theme of unhealthy love. Once again, trigger warning for some content. But I'm gonna go back real quick to what I've been drawing on the screen during this, and let me talk about that first. Alright, it's been a few hours, but I am back. Now, you see I started something and then scrapped it. But anyway, so these little sketches, that is of Roxy Hart from Chicago. Fun fact about that, she is a murderer. That's not a spoiler, that's like the whole point of the show. Anyways, and this is Noel Gruber from Ride the Cyclone. Yes, that's what it's called. I kind of just like thought their vibes of like kind of faux rich mixed well with the character I think I'm gonna create. So I'm gonna now do like some sketches that are hopefully more successful than last time on this side, and just do like ideas before I go to the actual drawing creating part. Yeah. Okay, for that topic, make sure to keep in mind the idea of faux rich, but I'm going to go to another part of research I did. This is an article written and published by CNN interviewing Sheila Eisenberg, the author of the book Women Who Love Men Who Kill. I decided to use this article to dive into the possible mindset of the character, and I'll read out a few quotes from that article and go into what they say and what I took from them. The article is written by Ryan Bergeron in 2018. Okay, let's start. Quote, Sheila Eisenberg, author of Women Who Love Men Who Kill, spoke with dozens of women who had relationships with murderers. She found that there are two primary groups of people who end up with murderers. Those who fall in love with ordinary murderers, quote, unquote, believing that they see the quote unquote true good side of a killer, and those who start relationships with notorious tabloid headlining murderers because they are drawn to the spotlight. In her research, Eisenberg found that many in both groups cling to the belief that their convicted boyfriends and husbands are in fact innocent. They were deluded that the man had not committed the crimes, Eisenberg said. She points to women like Carol Ann Boone, who began her relationship with Ted Bundy while he was on trial for 2 murders and 3 assaults at Florida State University, married him and had his child. Bundy later confessed to 30 murders. Okay, let's go into that. Eisenberg gives primary motivations for these people. Simple love or an underlying want for fame and notoriety. I think it would be interesting to do the second one as like the main motivation for this character with a little bit of the first. I took some inspiration from characters with a want for fame that I drew up in my sketchbook. Like I said, we have Roxy Hart, who becomes a murderess in the story because she wants attention, because she wants that notoriety, and then she cheats on her husband with a man she thinks can give her that. And in the end, because of him lying to her, she kills him, which ends up with her finding the way to the fame she wants by lying and deceiving people through her murder trial.
Wait, real quick.
Okay, so a quick note, now that I finished this part, I hate this page. It's just not what I wanted it to be. I don't know why, but you know what? Things happen, I guess. Yay! And then also we have Noel Gruber, who's a much more tragic character, but he wanted a scandalous life, maybe a little bit less like rich. He's not exactly evil. It's a really strange story, that one. But he wanted a life that was glamorous in its own way, even if it's tragically and really strangely glamorous, which I won't get into. But those sort of ideas are what inspired my first vibe idea for the character. And then the main idea that I mentioned before, faux riche, whatever the character ended like, I wanted to highlight the idea that she really wants underneath fame. This character needed to exemplify a fancy, rich vibe, nothing truly nice, but wanting to appear that way. I still will take the idea that she doesn't believe the person she loves really is a killer. However, her underlying motivation to cling onto the ideas of his innocence is her addiction to the attention that being with a man like him gives her. Along with that, maybe whoever this man is has the ability to give her a lavish life. Like, he's rich, he has that sort of money to both give her the lavish life and cover up his own crimes, which she selfishly wants to hold on to, although I feel like that's a motivation she might not admit to herself. It's my idea that underneath she does, like, in her gut, know the truth of who he is, but she denies it as long as she can to hold on to the life that she's trying to build, that she's always wanted. Alright, so I went to a second article for some research. This is from Psychology Today. It is by Catherine Ramsland, if I said that right, PhD. It was updated 2026. I don't remember when it was originally published, but I think it was referenced in that earlier CNN article. Dr. Ramsland says this, quote, "Women who have married serial killers have given several different reasons. Some believe they can change a man as cruel as powerful as a serial killer. Others, quote-unquote, see the little boy that the killer once was and seek to nurture him. A few hope to share in the media spotlight or get a book or movie deal," end quote. For this character, I think it would be both partly the media spotlight, because I feel like this might be a famous person even if he isn't caught yet. So a little bit of the media spotlight motivation, as well as seeing that little boy he once was. He doesn't outright hurt her specifically, and she thinks that means there's something underneath him that's tender and special and good. Even if she knows that in the past or at the present he's hurt other people, she doesn't think this is bad enough to write off the way he's that sweet to her, like allowing her to be by her side and funding her lifestyle. As for his part, what I think he would get out of this relationship is a stroking of his ego. Someone who is a killer fundamentally thinks that their life is more important than anyone else's, in my opinion. I'm not talking about self-defense or anything like that, but someone who kills based on selfish motivation like money, fame, or attention. That has to have a significant ego in order to believe that their wants are more important than someone else's entire life. A person like that would probably like someone who strokes their ego to be around them and by their side, because that person would back up their view on the world revolving around them. As long as the character that I'm creating loves them in that sort of way and backs up his belief, they might not be harmed by him. I think that an interesting storyline for this character would be like her being presented with undeniable first-hand evidence of who this man really is. If she's no longer able to deny his true nature, she would have to face the fact that she's been loving someone truly cruel and has to choose between the life he has given her and the morals she holds on to. I do think that she would be a selfish character, but I don't think that she is selfish enough to look past him displaying violence to her firsthand. Maybe she would have to choose between reporting him and balancing that with the idea that she might not be believed or that he might take his violence out on her in return. Okay, now for the design itself, I think I really could have done better. I don't hate the design I landed on. I think it's lacking details to make it more compelling. Her design is fairly plain. If I were to go back and fix it, I think I would replace her flat shoes with knee-high boots. I feel like that would better match her more show-offy vibes, along with big earrings. Overall, I just wish I gave her more accessories, but like I said at the beginning, I got really distracted by Art Fight and didn't think about it until now. I might go back and change things next week, but that's only if I decide to add her to my Art Fight account or not. Other than that, like, here you go, this is the character. I'll probably change it later, yeah. Overall, for this week, I did almost nothing. I literally just drew Sandra there and the extra pieces for the first character, who I ended up naming Karina, as just a placeholder name. However, I still do think the art went better than last week. I kind of despise the art I made last week. There's this one big piece I made for my character, Thea, that I hate how it came out. I actually tried doing that 3 different times, but I couldn't get it right. I don't know if it was like the brain fog or what was going on with me, because it does not look like it should, or how I expect my art to be. And then I tried doing that extra piece for Karina, and it came out exactly right immediately, and I barely worked on it at all, and I don't know what's the difference here or what's going on, but you know what? I will, I guess, try. Just keep going. Anyways, like I said, next week will be an art fight prep video. I'll continue creating characters for this challenge during that time, but I need to get this obsession with the art fight prep out of my brain, or I will go crazy. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and maybe I'll see you next week, but yeah, thank you for watching.